Alia stood by the hospital window, watching the rain tap gently against the glass. The clouds were thick, and the sky looked tired, just like her. It had been almost a year since her husband Faison passed away in a car accident. That one moment had changed everything. She was left alone with their little daughter, Zara, and a mountain of responsibilities. Zara was only 6, but she had already seen too much pain. Her big brown eyes often looked older than her age, and Alia could see the worry she tried to hide behind her soft smile. Every day, Alia told herself to stay strong for Zara, for the promise she had made to Faison, to take care of their daughter no matter what. Alia worked as a nurse at a small private hospital. Her hours were long, and the pay was just enough to cover rent, groceries, and Zara's school fees. She rarely had time for herself. Life had become a routine of rushing between work, home, and making sure Zara didn't feel the emptiness they both carried in their hearts. One day, while she was preparing to leave her shift, the head nurse called her over. "Alia, we need one nurse to help at the Royal View Hotel this evening," she said. "A large company is hosting a charity event, and they need medical staff on site just in case." Alia hesitated. She had promised Zara they would have dinner together and maybe watch a cartoon. But the extra pay would help. Zara would understand, she always did. Later that evening, Alia arrived at the hotel. The ballroom was glowing with chandeliers, and well-dressed people moved around, sipping drinks and chatting politely. She stayed near the side, wearing her uniform and a calm smile. Most people didn't even notice her. Suddenly, there was a commotion near the stage. A well-dressed older woman collapsed mid-speech. People gasped and someone shouted, "Call a doctor." Alia rushed forward, her nurse instincts kicking in. She knelt beside the woman, checked her pulse, and quickly assessed her condition. "It's her blood sugar," she said calmly. "She needs glucose immediately." A waiter brought orange juice. Alia carefully helped the woman drink. Within minutes, color returned to the woman's face. She opened her eyes, confused but smiling weakly. "You saved me," she whispered. A man in a black suit appeared by her side. His expression was tight, his jaw set. His eyes were sharp and cold, like he was used to being in control of everything. "Is she okay?" he asked. "She be fine," Alia said, still focused on the patient. "But she should rest and eat something." The man gave a short nod. "Thank you." His voice was deep, but without warmth. Later, Alia learned the woman she had helped was Mrs. Khan, the mother of Araf Khan, the CEO of Khan Industries. Alia had heard his name before. He was one of the youngest business tycoons in the country. He was known for being brilliant, rich, and completely heartless in business. The next day, Alia was surprised when a black car stopped outside the hospital as she was leaving her shift. A man in a suit stepped out and handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter with the company's logo and a short message. "Mr. Arav, Khan wishes to offer you a temporary position as a personal caregiver for his mother. Good pay, flexible hours. Call this number if interested." Alia stared at the letter. The pay listed was nearly triple what she earned now. It could help clear some of the loans she was struggling with. But working inside a billionaire's home, that sounded like a different world. That night, she sat with Zara at the dinner table. "Sweetheart," she began gently, "Mommy might start a new job soon. I'll still be home with you, but I might have to go to a big house sometimes to take care of a lady." Zara looked up, chewing slowly. "Is it a nice lady?" "Yes," Alia smiled. "She's kind. I helped her yesterday, and her son wants me to help take care of her." Zara nodded. "If it makes you less tired, Mommy, you should do it." Alia blinked back tears. Even at 6, Zara understood too much. The next day she called the number. A calm voice on the line gave her the address and said a car would pick her up by the end of the week. Aliyah stood outside a grand mansion in the hills. The gates opened slowly as the car drove in. The house looked more like a palace than a home. Inside, everything was clean, quiet, and expensive. Marble floors, tall windows, and huge paintings filled the space. Mrs. Khan welcomed her with a warm hug. "I told Arav to hire you," she said kindly. "You have a gentle hand. Just stay with me a few hours each day." Aliyah nodded, grateful and nervous. That's when she saw him again. Arav stood at the top of the staircase, looking down. His face was unreadable. "You're here," he said simply, then turned and walked away. Days passed. Aliyah began visiting the mansion regularly. She took care of Mrs. Khan, made sure she ate properly, managed her medicines, and kept her company. Zara sometimes came along on weekends when Aliyah couldn't find a babysitter. The old lady adored her. Zara's laugh echoed through the quiet house as she played with a puzzle on the living room floor. One afternoon, Arav returned early from work. He walked into the room, looked around, and raised an eyebrow at the small girl on the floor. "She's my daughter," Aliyah said quickly, standing up. "I hope it's all right. I couldn't leave her home alone." Arav looked at Zara. The little girl stood up politely and smiled. "Hello, sir." He gave a short nod. "It's fine." After he left the room, Mrs. Khan laughed softly. "That's the first time I've seen him not complain about someone using the living room." Over time, Zara's presence became normal in the mansion. She played in the garden, sometimes left drawings for Mrs. Khan, and always said, "Thank you," and "please," like her mother had taught her. Arav stayed distant, but he noticed things: how the girl helped clear plates, how she kissed her mother's hand when she thought no one was watching. Then one evening, Aliyah received a call from the school. Her check had bounced. Embarrassed, she promised to send the payment soon. That night, after Zara had fallen asleep, Aliyah sat alone at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. Bills were piling up. Her heart felt heavy. She didn't know Zara had woken up. The next morning, while Aliyah was busy packing a lunchbox, Zara quietly wrote a note and tucked it into her backpack. Then, after school, she told the driver, "I want to go see Mr. Khan at his office." The driver, surprised but used to the girl's polite tone, made a quick call and received approval. Zara stood in the large glass office in front of the serious CEO. She took a deep breath, then spoke in her soft voice. "Sir, please marry my mommy," she said, her small hands shaking. "She's all I've got left." Arav stared at her, speechless, and that's where everything began to change. Arav Khan was a man who believed in facts, not emotions. He lived his life with discipline. Every minute of his day was planned. His world was full of numbers, deals, and business meetings. He didn't like surprises, and he never allowed anything personal to mix with his work. So when little Zara, wearing her school uniform and holding her school bag, walked into his office and made a request no one had ever made before, he didn't know what to say. "Sir, please marry my mommy," she repeated, her voice soft but steady. "She's all I've got left." Arav stared at her, stunned. For a moment, he forgot how to respond. He had faced angry investors, tough interviews, and huge business losses, but nothing had prepared him for this. His assistant, standing near the door, looked just as surprised. Arav finally cleared his throat and said, "Where is your mother?" "She doesn't know I'm here," Zara admitted, looking down. "But I heard her crying last night. She thinks I was asleep, but I wasn't. She's tired all the time. And And I thought maybe if you were my dad, she wouldn't be so sad. Her words were innocent, but they carried the weight of real pain. Arav didn't know what to do with that kind of honesty. Go home, he said gently after a pause. Your mother must be worried. Zara nodded and turned to leave. Arav watched her go, her small steps making a big impact on his thoughts. He didn't know why, but the sight of her walking out of his office made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. That evening, Aliyah arrived at the mansion, confused and upset. The driver had told her Zara had gone. To Arv's office. She found her daughter sitting quietly in the living room, with her school bag still on her back. Zara, Aliyah cried. What were you thinking? You can't just go somewhere without telling me. Zara looked at her mother, her eyes filling with tears. I just wanted to help. Aliyah hugged her tightly, her heart full of worry and love. She didn't know what her daughter had said to Mr. Khan, but she was embarrassed and nervous. The next day, Aliyah went to speak with Arav in private. She stood in front of his home office, taking a deep breath before knocking. Come in, he said, his voice calm. She stepped in. Mr. Khan, I'm very sorry about what happened yesterday. I didn't know Zara had gone to your office. I understand if you're upset. Arav looked at her carefully. I'm not upset, he replied, but I was surprised. Aliyah looked down, unsure of what to say. She said something unexpected, Arav continued. She asked me to marry. You, Aliyah gasped. Her face turned red with shock. I had no idea she would say such a thing. Please believe me, I didn't put that thought in her head. I know, Arav said simply. There was a long silence. Aliyah shifted uncomfortably, still feeling embarrassed. Then Arav spoke again. Tell me, Aliyah, what would you do if someone offered to marry you, not for love, but for protection? For a better life for your daughter? She looked at him, confused. I don't understand. He leaned back in his chair. Zara's words made me think. You're doing everything on your own. Your job, your daughter, your bills. What if I'd offered you a marriage not for romance but for safety, for stability? Aliyah was stunned. Are you serious? Yes, Arav replied. My mother likes you. I trust your character. And Zara, she's not just any child. She's brave. She made me realize that maybe I can give something back. I'm offering you a partnership, a legal marriage. You'll have a better life and Zara will have a home. In return, I get peace in my personal life and keep my mother happy. Aliyah didn't know what to say, her heart raced. This was not how she imagined her life. But then again, nothing had gone as planned since Faizan died. I need time to think, she said quietly. Arav nodded. Take all the time you need. Over the next few days, Aliyah was lost in thought. She watched Zara laugh and play, unaware of the serious decision her mother was trying to make. Aliyah thought about her bills, her tired feet, her long work hours. And she thought about Zara's future school, safety, a home with more than just love. She also thought about Arav. He was cold, yes. Quiet, distant and serious. But he had never been rude to her. He respected her work. He didn't smile often, but when he did, it wasn't fake. Could she build a peaceful life with him, even without love? One evening, as Aliyah brushed Zara's hair, her daughter looked up and asked, Are you mad at me for asking Mr. Khan to marry you? Aliyah smiled gently. No, sweetie, I'm not mad. I just want you to know that grown-up things are complicated. But I'm proud of you for being brave. Zara nodded. I just wanted us to be happy. Aliyah kissed her forehead. We will be one way or another. The next morning, Aliyah returned to the mansion and asked to see Arav. He stood up when She entered. Have you decided? She nodded slowly. If this is really what you want, then… Yes, I agree. Arav didn't smile, but his eyes softened just a little. Then we'll begin arrangements, a small ceremony, no press. Just paperwork and signatures. Alia's heart beat fast, but she nodded again. This was happening. Not a fairy tale. Not a dream, but maybe a different kind of beginning. A few days later, the small wedding took place at the mansion. No flowers, no music. Just a quiet room, Alawiya, and two witnesses, Arav's assistant and Mrs. Khan. Zara wore a little white dress and held her mother's hand the whole time. When the papers were signed, Mrs. Khan hugged Aliya and whispered, "Thank you, dear. You've given this home new light." Zara looked up at Arav and asked innocently, "Are you my real daddy now?" Arav hesitated, then bent down to her level. "I'm your guardian now, Zara, and I promise to protect you and your mother." Zara smiled. That was enough for her. That night, Aliya sat on the bed in her new room. It was large, clean, and full of soft lights. But she couldn't sleep. Everything felt strange. She wasn't used to this life. It didn't feel like home yet. In the room next door, Zara was already asleep, hugging a new teddy bear Mrs. Khan had gifted her. And Arav? He sat alone in his study, looking out the window. For the first time in years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, his life was changing in ways he never expected. Neither of them knew what would come next, but the decision was made, and the story of their strange, quiet, unexpected marriage had just begun. The first few weeks after the quiet wedding were strange for Aliya. Though she now lived in a grand mansion, it didn't feel like her home. Everything was neat, expensive, and too quiet. There were no neighbors chatting outside. No street noise, no small kitchen smells like back in their rented apartment. Aliya had her own bedroom now, much larger than she needed, with soft carpets and golden lamps. But the walls felt unfamiliar. She missed the cozy sounds of Zara sleeping next to her. Now, Zara had her own room with toys and colorful wallpaper. It was beautiful, but part of Aliya missed their old, small life. It had been harder, but it had been theirs. Arav remained distant. He was polite and respectful, but cold. They ate dinner together sometimes, mostly in silence, with Mrs. Khan trying to keep the mood light. Zara, always cheerful, brought some warmth into the house. She would talk about school, sing little songs, and tell jokes. Arav would watch her quietly, sometimes with a faint smile on his face. One evening, after dinner, Zara ran up to Arav with a drawing. "Look, I drew our family," she said proudly. "This is me, this is Mommy, and this is you." Arav took the picture and looked at it for a few seconds. The drawing was full of hearts and smiling faces. "Thank you," he said softly. "It's very nice." Zara beamed. "You should put it in your office," he nodded. "I will." Aliya watched this from the corner of the room. It was the first time she had seen him connect with someone in a personal way. For a moment, she saw a glimpse of something different behind his cold appearance. Something gentle. Despite the peaceful start, their marriage was still based on agreement, not emotion. Aliya wasn't allowed to call him her husband in public. They didn't sleep in the same room, didn't share personal stories. But slowly, little things began to shift. One day, Aliya was walking in the garden when Arav joined her. Silently, they strolled side by side for a while without speaking. The air was cool and the flowers were blooming. "Zara seems happy here," he finally said. "She is," Aliya replied. "She likes having a garden to run in. And she adores your mother." Arav nodded. "My mother hasn't laughed this much in years." They walked a few more steps. "I hope you're comfortable here," he added. Aliyah smiled gently. It's a beautiful house, but comfort isn't always about space or furniture. Sometimes it's about feeling like you belong. He looked at her, as if trying to understand. That night, something else changed. Araf came home early and found Zara in the kitchen with Aliyah, making sandwiches. Aliyah wore an apron and Zara had flour on her nose. They were laughing. Would you like to join us? Aliyah asked, a bit nervous. To her surprise, Araf said yes. He sat down, and they made sandwiches together. Zara handed him a spoon and said, You have to help too. We're a team now. Araf didn't argue. He spread jam on the bread carefully, and even smiled when Zara gave him a thumbs up. Moments like these began to happen more often. Araf would join them for breakfast sometimes or take a short walk with Aliyah in the evenings. He even drove Zara to school once when Aliyah had a doctor's appointment. The driver was shocked but didn't say anything. Zara started calling him Uncle Arav when she spoke about him at school. At home, she just called him Arav, like her mother. One day, she asked him, Can I call you something else? Like Dad? Arav looked at her gently. You can call me whatever feels right to you. Zara thought for a moment. Okay, I'll call you Papa, but only when we're alone. Arav nodded. That's fine. As the days passed, Aliyah found herself looking at Arav differently. He wasn't the man she had first met at the charity event. He was still serious, still quiet, but now he cared. She saw it in how he noticed when Zara was tired, or when Mrs. Khan forgot her medicine, or when Aliyah looked stressed after a long day. But just as things started to feel peaceful, a shadow from Arav's past came back. One morning, Aliyah went to the nearby market with the housekeeper. When they returned, the gate was surrounded by reporters. Cameras flashed and questions were shouted. Mr. Khan, is it true you married your nurse in secret? Why didn't you announce the wedding? Is this marriage real or just for business? Aliyah froze. The housekeeper pulled her inside. Quickly. Inside, Arav was already handling the situation. His face was hard and calm, but Aliyah could see the stress in his eyes. How did they find out? She asked. Someone from the office leaked it, he said. We'll handle it. That night, headlines were everywhere. Cold CEO marries single mother in secret deal? Billionaire's marriage? True love or cover-up? The articles were full of guesses, questions, and judgments. They painted Aliyah as a woman who had caught a rich man, and Arav as someone hiding something. Aliyah sat in her room, reading the comments online. Some were kind, but many were cruel. Her heart ached not for herself, but for Zara. She didn't want her daughter to grow up in the middle of rumors. Later that evening, she went to speak with Arav. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't want to bring you trouble. He looked up. You didn't. It's not your fault. She took a deep breath. If it's easier, we can end this. The marriage, I'll take Zara and go. I don't want to bring shame to your name. Arav stood up. No. His voice was calm but firm. You and Zara are not the problem. The people judging us are. She looked at him, surprised. You don't have to protect me, she said. I'm not doing this for me, he replied. I'm doing this for all of us. The next day, Arav held a press conference. He stood in front of the cameras, proud and strong. Yes, I married Aliyah, he said. She is not just a nurse. She is a kind, smart, brave woman who saved my mother's life. She is my wife, and I will not let anyone speak against her or our family. Aliyah watched it on TV with tears in her eyes. Zara clapped and said, Papa is so cool. After the press conference, things began to calm down. People respected Arav for standing by his family. The cruel voices became quieter. And Aliyah, she started to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. One evening, as they sat in the garden under the stars, Arav turned to her and asked, "Do you think we're doing okay?" She looked at him and nodded. "I think we're learning, slowly." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Maybe someday this won't just be a marriage on paper." She smiled, her heart fluttering. Maybe someday. And as Zara played nearby, their hearts began to open one day, one moment at a time. Aliyah looked out the window as the evening sunlight filled the living room with a soft orange glow. Zara was drawing on the floor nearby, humming a happy tune. It had been a few weeks since the press conference, and things were finally peaceful. Again, no more reporters outside, no more harsh headlines. For the first time in a long while, Aliyah felt calmed. She still remembered the way Arav had defended her and Zara in front of everyone. His words weren't just brave, they were true. In that moment, Aliyah had felt like she wasn't just his wife on paper. She was someone who mattered to him, someone he was willing to stand beside in front of the whole world. Since then, things in the house had started to feel different. There was more laughter, more warmth. Arav wasn't just a silent figure in the background anymore. He joined them at breakfast, helped Zara with her homework, and even asked Aliyah how her day had gone. They still lived in separate rooms, but the space between their hearts had grown smaller. One Saturday afternoon, Mrs. Khan suggested they take a family trip to the park. "It will be good for all of us," she smiled. "Zara needs sunshine, and you both need some fresh air." Aliyah agreed, and to her surprise, so did Arav. The next morning, the family left together in a black SUV. Arav drove himself, which shocked the driver and the house staff. Zara sat in the back seat, full of excitement. When they arrived at the park, it was full of families, laughter, and the smell of popcorn. Zara ran toward the swings while Aliyah followed her. Arav stayed a few steps behind, watching the two of them with a soft expression. Zara called out, "Papa, push me." And without hesitation, Arav walked over and gently pushed the swing. Her laughter rang through the air. Aliyah sat on a nearby bench, smiling. It felt like a dream, a good one. After a while, they all sat together on a picnic mat. Arav took off his shoes, rolled up his sleeves, and even helped make sandwiches. Mrs. Khan, sitting under a tree, watched them with tears in her eyes. "You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever," she told Aliyah quietly. "A real family." Aliyah placed a hand on hers and smiled. "You've given me and Zara a new life." Just as things were starting to feel like a fairy tale, reality knocked again. A few days later, Arav came home looking more serious than usual. He walked into the living room where Aliyah was reading and sat down across from her. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. His voice steady. Aliyah closed the book and gave him her full attention. "A business partner from my past. His name is Naveed," Arav began. "Years ago, we worked together on a few major projects. But I ended the partnership when I found out he was dishonest." Aliyah listened quietly. "He's back, and he's trying to hurt my reputation. He's telling people that this marriage is fake, that I paid you to marry me." Aliyah's face dropped. "What?" "He's trying to say that you married me for money, and that I used this marriage to avoid legal questions about the company's taxes." Aliyah felt her chest tighten. After all they had been through, the past was trying to break their new beginning. "What can we do?" she asked. "I'll handle the business side," Arav said firmly. "But I want you to be prepared. There might be more questions, more reporters. Zara might even hear things at school." Aliyah nodded. "We'll get through it. Together." That night, she found herself unable to sleep. She sat by the window, looking at the moon, thinking about how far they had come. This marriage had started as an agreement, but now there was something real between them, and she didn't want to lose it. A few days later, the news began to spread again. New articles appeared online, suggesting that the marriage was a cover-up. A few bold reporters even called Aaliyah's hospital, asking for information about her past. Aaliyah felt the pressure building. She didn't care about the gossip for herself, but Zara was still a child. She shouldn't have to go through this. One afternoon, as Aaliyah picked Zara up from school, a group of mothers stood nearby, whispering. One of them gave Aaliyah a sharp look. Another quickly walked away with her child. Zara held her mother's hand tightly. Why are they acting weird? Aaliyah knelt down. Sometimes people believe things that aren't true love, but you know what matters. Zara shook her head. The truth. And we know what that is. Zara nodded and hugged her mom. That night, Arav called a meeting with his legal team. Aaliyah sat in quietly as they discussed strategies, documents, and public statements. Arav never looked worried, but Aaliyah could tell he was tired. Later, when they were alone, she made him a cup of tea and brought it to his study. Thank you, he said, accepting it. You're not alone in this, she told him. He looked up at her, his eyes softer than usual. I know. There was a pause. You've changed a lot, Aaliyah said gently. So have you, Arav replied. And I'm glad. They smiled at each other, a quiet understanding growing between them. Days passed, and the tension began to fade. Arav's team found proof that Naveed had lied to investors in the past. With legal documents and video evidence, they exposed him. The news changed direction quickly. Headlines now praised Arav for standing firm and protecting his family. Next week, Arav was invited to speak at a business conference. Before going on stage, he called Aaliyah. I want you to watch, he said. It's important. When he stood at the podium, he spoke not just about business, but about family. I used to believe life was only about success, money, and numbers, he told the audience. But a little girl taught me that love and loyalty matter more. I married her mother not for show, but because I wanted to give her a home. In return, they gave me something I didn't know. I was missing peace. Aaliyah watched from the mansion's TV room, tears shining in her eyes. Zara clapped and said proudly, That's my papa. That evening, when Arav returned home, Aaliyah met him at the door. For the first time, she reached out and held his hand. I'm proud of you, she whispered. He looked at her with something warm and unspoken in his eyes. I couldn't have done it without you. They walked into the house, hand in hand, as Zara ran to greet them with her usual smile. Their story had started with a simple request from a little girl. But now, step by step, their bond was turning into something real, not just for the world to see, but in their hearts too. After the business conference, life seemed to settle into a new, comfortable rhythm. Arav was no longer just the cold CEO Aaliyah had first met. He was slowly becoming a father figure to Zara and a true partner to Aaliyah. Yet, the journey was far from over. One quiet morning, Aaliyah was preparing breakfast in the large kitchen. Zara sat at the table, excitedly talking about a school project. Arav entered, wearing casual clothes, and poured himself a cup of coffee. The ease between them was new and refreshing. Mommy, can Papa help me with my project? Zara asked, looking at Arav with hopeful eyes. He smiled and nodded. Of course, Zara. What's the project about? As Zara explained, Arav listened carefully. He even suggested some ideas and helped her gather the materials she needed. Alia watched them, feeling warmth in her heart. This was more than a marriage of convenience now. This was a family, but old fears still lingered. Alia worried about Zara growing up with a father who was still learning to open his heart. She sometimes wondered if Arav truly loved them, or if he was simply fulfilling his promise. One evening, Alia found Arav sitting alone in the study, staring at a photo of his late father. She sat beside him, not saying anything at first. After a moment, she asked quietly, "Do you miss him?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. He was a strict man, but I learned a lot from him. Sometimes I wonder if I'm living the life he wanted for me, or the one I want for myself." Alia reached out and held his hand. "Maybe this family is your choice now. Not because you have to, but because you want to." He looked at her, eyes softening. "I hope so." Days turned into weeks and the little family grew closer. Arav started joining Zara at school events, cheering the loudest at her plays and sports days. He surprised Alia by learning how to cook her favorite dishes. Zara's laughter filled the mansion more than ever. One afternoon, while playing in the garden, Zara asked a question that surprised both adults. "Mommy, do you think Papa loves us?" Alia smiled and said, "I think he's learning how. Just like we are." Arav walked over and knelt down beside Zara. "I love you both very much," he said sincerely. "You are my family." Zara's eyes lit up. She ran to hug him tightly. Alia felt tears of happiness in her eyes. But life is never without challenges. One day, Arav's company faced a difficult crisis. A sudden market drop meant he had to make tough decisions. The stress returned to his face, the coldness creeping back into his voice. Alia noticed the change. She knew the man behind the CEO mask was still there, sometimes hidden by the pressures of his work. She wanted to help but wasn't sure how. One evening, Arav came home late. He was quiet and distant. Zara tried to talk to him, but he barely answered. Alia sat beside him and said gently, "You don't have to carry everything alone." He looked at her, surprised by her calm words. "I'm used to it," he said quietly. "That you don't have to be," she replied. "We are your family. Let us help." That night, Arav shared his worries and fears. He talked about the pressure of being a CEO, the expectations and the loneliness. Alia listened without judgment. She held his hand and reminded him that he wasn't alone anymore. Over time, Arav learned to balance his work and family better. He realized that opening his heart didn't make him weak. It made him stronger. One special evening, Arav surprised Alia and Zara with a small celebration in the garden. There were fairy lights, music, and a simple cake. He had invited close friends and Mrs. Khan. He stood in front of them and said, "This family means everything to me. Thank you for teaching me how to love." Alia looked at him, her eyes full of love. Zara hugged him tightly. As the stars shone above, the family laughed, danced, and felt whole. Years later, when Zara was older, she told her mother, "I'm glad you asked Papa to marry you. He's the best dad I could ever have." Alia smiled and said, "And I'm glad you believed in us." Their story, which began with a tearful plea from a little girl, had grown into a true family. A family built not just on paper, but on love, trust, and hope.